Welcome to the video demonstration on secondary impression making. These are the materials and instruments that we need to prepare for the visit. During this visit, you will receive the study modules and special trays from the lab. In this case, we will learn how to take zinc oxide eugenol impressions for maxillary arch using closed-fitting tray and polyvinyl siloxane impression for mandibular arch using space perforated tray. Check the outline of the sulcus extension and the tray extension. Tray extension has to be 2 mm short from the sulcus extension. Run your fingers along the tray extension to detect any sharpness and remove it if there is any. Insert the special tray from one side of the mouth to the other side while retracting the cheek. Inspect the tray extension. It must be 2 mm short from the sulcus. Trim the overextended areas should any be found. Repeat the same procedure for the mandibular arch. Pay attention to muscle and frenum attachment areas. Trim all overextended areas using acrylic burr. Make sure the tray borders are rounded and smooth. Then, re-examine the tray in the patient's mouth. After that, we use green stick compound to border mold the tray. Soften the green stick compound by using butane microtorch. Apply green stick to the border of the tray in parts, starting from the posteriors. Immerse the tray in a hot water bath between 50 and 60 Celsius to soften the green stick compound. While the material is being softened, insert it into the oral cavity and mold the border. Using one hand, border mold the posterior area while the green stick is in place, while the other hand holds the special tray in place. Continue to border mold the rest of the tray and reinsert the tray into the mouth. Repeat the procedure until the whole tray is done. And finally, border mold the cheek and lip. Alternatively, instruct the patient to activate muscles, example, open and close the mouth, purse the lips, and make O with lips. If done correctly, a seal should be created between the green stick and the vestibule. If the impression tray shows through the green stick mold, the tray is overextended. Remove the green stick compound, reduce the tray further, and repeat the border molding process. Smoothen the external surface of the green stick with a scalpel. Remove 0.5 mm of green stick extension to allow space for the impression material. Before you make ZOE impressions, remember to apply Vaseline on patients' lips for easier removal of impression material later on. For maxillary arch, we shall be using ZOE impression material. Dispense equal amount of base and catalyst paste on the glass slab. Mix the ZOE according to the manufacturer's instructions until the mixture is homogeneous. Load the impression onto the special tray. Distribute the impression material towards the border of the tray. While the assistant is mixing the impression material, dry the maxillary arch. The clinician should be positioned behind and to one side of the patient. Position the tray in patient mouth correctly. Observe the position of the frenum relative to the labial notch in the tray. The upper lip is everted with alternating pressure and the tray is carried upwards. The tray is seated from the posterior to the anterior so that the material flows from the anterior rather than towards the posterior. Once seated, instruct the patient to be in relaxed position and control his breathing through the nose. The soft tissues surrounding the vestibular borders should be manipulated to minimize overextension of the impression. Instruct the patient to activate muscles, example, move the mandible sideways, purse the lips, and make O with lips. The tray is then held firmly with minimal pressure and secured in position until the impression material has set. After removing the impression from the mouth, ask the patient to say "ah" to locate the vibrating line and using an indelible pencil to mark it. Vibrating line is an imaginary line drawn across the palate that marks the beginning of the motion of the soft palate. After that, we insert the maxillary impression back in to transfer the mark to the impression. For the process of border molding mandibular special tray, the procedure is similar to that of the maxillary special tray. Apply the softened green stick to the border of the tray in parts, starting from the posteriors. Tray is then inserted onto the mandibular arch. Patient is asked to protrude the tongue and then push the tongue against the front part of the palate. Continue border mold for other parts of the tray. Cheek is lifted outward, upward, inward, backward, and forward to simulate movements of the frenum. Smoothen the external surface of the green stick with a scalpel. Remove 0.5 mm of green stick extension to allow space for the impression material. Tray adhesive is applied on the special tray, especially at the border of the tray. When you are ready, the assistant will syringe the polyvinyl siloxane on the tray starting from one end to the other. Note that the nozzle tip is always in contact with the impression material as it is being dispensed. While the assistant is mixing the impression material, dry the mandibular arch. While making mandibular impression, the clinician should stand to one side in front of the patient. Spread the impression over the border of the tray. Insert the tray on the one side first, then the other. This is to prevent stretching of the cheeks. Patient is instructed to raise the tongue while the impression is being seated centeredly over the residual ridges. Once seated, the soft tissue surrounding the vestibular border should be manipulated to minimize overextension of the impression. In the region of the buccal frenum, the cheek is elevated and then pulled outward, downward, and inward and moved backward and forward to simulate movement of the frenum. At the anterior region, the liberal flange is molded by lifting the lower lip outward, upward, and inward. At the lingual flange, ask the patient to protrude the tongue, push the tongue against the palate. You can repeat the movement as seen necessary. As you bottom mold, the tray must remain stable throughout the procedure. The tray is then held firmly with minimal pressure and secured in position until the impression material has set. Immerse the impression fully in the disinfectant solution for 10 minutes, then rinse again and place it in a sealed bag before sending it to the lab.